Karthik, please come over. So Karthik Kamal has flown from China, and he has a lot of experience in taming the dragon, and he's going to show us how. Okay, could we welcome the speaker with a round of applause?
Okay, by the way, to begin with, I was just exaggerating. I just flew from Coxtown, to be very honest. Alright, so we'll just start the session, but before that I would quickly like to understand what you guys have in mind when you see taming the dragon. What do you have in mind? What do you think the session is going to be?
Changing the mindset.
Sorry?
Changing
the mindset of a dragon? Or something else smaller? What do you think it is? Sorry?
Awesome movie.
It's a?
Awesome movie.
It's an awesome movie. That's Train the Dragon, right? That's another one. Yeah. What about Taming the Dragon? It comes from Train the Dragon and Taming the Shrew. It's like from Shakespeare and...
Might be you're going to be giving us some ninja skills.
Ninja skills? Okay, that sounds fun. Okay. Anyway, cool. So let me begin the talk. But before that, Maran, I have like 40 minutes, right?
30, but what do you guys say? Because we have an agreement but I'm okay. So
it's 30 plus 10, is it?
30 minutes, but...
Okay.
Okay, sure. Yes, take your time.
Alright, okay, so I'll try to wrap it within 30 or 35 minutes. So let's pick up. So the topic is Taming the Dragon. So all I'm going to talk about today is, so basically I am right now I'm this excited kid because for the first time I just kind of coached the teams from China, and I thought I should share that experience with the community because I'm really excited about the entire work. It was not just about going to a different place, but for me the challenges was also very different from the teams that I have coached. So just to give another introduction, so I also work with McAfee, and JP was one of the guys who interviewed me. So I was really not messing around with him when he said 10 more minutes you can take all your time.
I didn't know it was you next. I'll take another 10 more.
Yeah.
Why did he hire you at the end? Why did he hire you?
So anyway, the topic is about how to coach cross-cultural teams, and specifically about the Chinese team. So since we are talking about Asian culture here, I just want to talk about some of the common similarities that we have, and as well as the differences, and how to exploit these to our advantage to make sure the cross-cultural teams are effective or they're optimal. That's the topic all about. So talking about culture, the first thing that comes to my mind is cultural sensitivity. Especially in India, that's not a very difficult thing. We all understand it very well because we come from different cultures. Like just in this room, I can take about 6 to 7 states very easily. Right? We all have different cultures. So for me, one of the so I come from Coimbatore, so I speak only Tamil, so I don't understand. I can manage with Hindi, but when I moved into Delhi for the very first time, obviously the word that I commonly use is chumma. And you guys know how it works in Delhi. So it's very important that we understand everyone's culture and be a little bit sensitive about it. This is a very lighter context, but by and large it's a very important topic. So that's why I really want to spend some time today. So what is my objective today? What is the agenda? I'm not going to give you too many things, or rather I really don't have any magic tricks. I'm being very honest with you. If you want to walk out, you can just walk out. But all I have is, I have few tools that I generally use while I coach my teams, and what I specialize in, or rather what I really like is, so generally when we talk about software, we always talk about processes, we talk about tools, we talk about many things, and we really don't focus much on the people part. Although it's a very important aspect of how we work and how we operate. So I have almost decided that, even though I work on the other areas as well, every time I work with a team, I try to understand something more about working with people. I try to use different tools, basically explore the unknown. If people have attended the last session here, I think I was speaking with an Alice in Wonderland metaphor, which is all about going and exploring an unknown talent. So that's my objective. So this focus on this talk is going to be on that. So I'm going to introduce few tools, which you can take back and try and apply in your team, but apply cautiously, because these are people tools, it might backfire. Or any HRs here? Anybody from Human Resource Department? Nobody? Alright, okay. Cool.
everything.
Yeah, I can say anything I want. Alright, so just a quick introduction about me. So my name is Karthik Kamal and I work for this company called Agile FAQs. My Twitter handle is KKB. It comes from the Bumblebee idea. So to tell about myself, I'm a very greedy soul. I'm being very honest about it. As in, I try to do everything, like meaning I'm like what JP was talking about. So generalist specialist is what I really believe in. You know, that's something before Agile and after Agile, I think that's what I'm made about. One simple reason being, or also what I tell my teams is just my perspective or my belief. I heard the discussions that we had about coaches, developers and testers. So my personal belief is specialist doesn't exist. Because I believe it takes a lifetime to master a skill, and you may never master a skill to say that I'm a specialist. I don't know, this is just my belief. So I just believe that we all reach a certain level and we just move on to other areas, like which I think kind of expands our horizon, which makes us more productive. So that's about me. Then quickly moving on to the session itself. So like I said, I was very excited about this particular engagement. It was not that I have not coached teams in a different area or from a different country. But what was very special about China was, I don't speak Chinese, like most of you. How many people speak Chinese here? All of you? Okay. Yeah, so I was like one among them. So, you know, it's like I cannot speak Chinese. So all the while when I was coaching the teams, I just realized that my primary way of communicating with them was language. Even though there were a lot of other cues, other signals which we all pick up from each other, the primary mode of communication was language. Meaning, I've always been very specific about the words that I use. You know, like say using appropriate words has always been very, very special for me, not just from an agile perspective, even otherwise. But when I moved to China, when I know that I have to do this assignment, the biggest question I had was, okay, what am I going to do? What do I speak to them? So that was the biggest barrier. But I also realized that, I also believe that as human beings, we all are connected through other emotions as well. You know, it's possible for us to understand and appreciate each other differently, you know, beyond the limitation of a language. So that's what I thought I'd go and exploit. So what happened next? Like I said, every culture has its own specific implications. You know, it's very important for us to understand every culture. So let's take a quick exercise. I think you guys have been in the country for like a long time now, India, or anyone has flown from a different country today, like me. Anyway, so what I want to know is, tell me something about India. What do you think what is our culture? Where do we come from? What are the fundamentals of our culture?
You want to use the political words? Unity in diversity.
Unity in diversity, okay, alright, what else?
Like little political.
Sorry?
Secularism.
Secularism, okay, what else? Sorry? Vasudeva Kutumbakam, okay, what else?
We speak different languages.
Sorry, we speak different languages. What about the way how we interact with people? You know, how as a community we interact? Both positive and negative.
Get offended very easily.
We are offended very easily. Okay, alright.
We talk to strangers.
We talk to strangers, oh my god, really? I've never seen that.
Hey, compared to people in the West, at least, I mean, you go to a tube or in London or
Alright.
anywhere else, you'll find a pretty silent thing in the whole, although it's crowded.
Okay.
But in India, you'll find all the buses, everybody is like chatting around.
But do we talk to strangers? We talk to people that
But at least you make an effort to say, okay, where are you from in India
Like
and
that?
stuff like that.
I think
But
we can
you don't do that in the West.
They're taking difference from one area
Yes,
to another
yes.
area.
Sorry?
They're taking difference from one region of the country
Absolutely,
to
yeah,
another
exactly.
country.
Yes.
Some people,
Yeah.
We speak one through our voice and speak another one in through body.
Oh, like that?
Same.
Okay. Am I doing that right now? Alright.
Because our body language says something else.
Something else.
Like this, but what is this? No one knows.
But this is a very popular Indian
This
nod,
one-
right? Like how we nod our heads. Yeah, so likewise we have lot of things. Like for example, one of the things that I can note down is we all come from a very strong hierarchical background. You know, not just in office spaces, workspaces. It's always about even in the family. You know, there's a lot of respect for elders. We place them in a position where they cannot be wrong. You know, it's almost implicitly understood that they are elders and that's how it has to be. You know, interestingly, so me and my mom used to have this conversation. My mom keeps telling me that, okay, you're growing up, you have to grow up, you have to do this and all that. So I tell her that I feel growing up process is for both of us. How can it be just for me alone? Because you're also growing up, I'm also growing up, and it has to be a mutual process. But unfortunately, as a culture, it's always understood that elders are always right. I mean, it says nothing right or wrong, but the whole idea, that's the whole thing. So talking about the cultural implications in China, you will see that there are close connections between Indian and Chinese cultures, obviously because we all belong to the Asian family. So one of the few significant aspects, so definitely, when I say this, I'm not trying to judge the community, which is not my intention. So of course, all the research that at least this particular slide has some backing from the papers that I have documented, because I had few observations when I went there and started coaching the team. I wanted to understand if I was right. In fact, I had got it verified with some of the therapists I know, some of the psychotherapists I know, to make sure I'm not saying something which is politically not correct. But if you just look at it, there are like three primary aspects of any Chinese culture. The first one is hierarchy and harmony, by which what I mean is there's a lot of harmony in hierarchy. They totally make peace with it. It's understood that there is going to be hierarchy, and that's the way we operate. Right? And the other one is guanxi. Guanxi meaning relationships. Or in other words, even in our organizations, if you talk about it, we have roles, we have things, but we always have, he will do it for me. This person, I'll just go speed talk and I'll get things done. In other words, we call it as governance, right? If you see most of the agile teams, or not just agile teams, it's always an organizational thing. I've heard this from a lot of teams when we have multiple regional people. They say, they just go start speaking in their own languages, their own particular language, and there's a lot of bonding happens that way. And that's what we call it as guanxi or relationship. Do you guys use that? Who has not used it ever? You have not?
I have used.
You have used it? Who has not used it? Okay. Alright, so Mianji is again very similar to relationship, but the slight difference here is they call it as face value, by which what I mean is I don't want to put another person down in front of an entire community, meaning I always ensure that the face value of the person is maintained. You guys understand what it means? Meaning, I don't want to put someone down. So even if someone is going to be wrong, I wouldn't say that because in the process I'm going to put the person down. Or that's what I think in my head, right? That's what happens. So these are the three primary aspects. So when I started coaching the team, it's a very small team. It's like about 12 people. Like probably the entire office we had only 30 people. So it was like I could observe these patterns in them. So what I decided was, okay, I should do something about it. So I realized that it's not that they are too bad. I mean, it's not like these things are not useful for me. There are certain aspects which is useful. There are certain aspects which I might have to work on to make them more effective, right? Obviously, we make systemic changes. We did a lot of things as well, which I'm not going to talk in this presentation. But I'm just going to focus on what we did on a cultural level to ensure, the teams have a working environment. So like for example, one of the things that I really liked about this team, I think JP might know, the Shenzhen team there, such a lovely team, because the very first time I went there, they invited me for lunch. They all have lunch together. It's such a nice feeling. And they have an auntie. They don't even call her as someone. They call her as auntie. She says, auntie will come and cook food for us, and they all sit together and have food. So that's something I really thought which is appreciable, which is something I should never take away from them. But there were certain aspects which I really wanted to work on. But what did I do first? Obviously, to look into myself and see what do I need to change to ensure that I'm going to be the change agent here and help them transition, because that is going to be the first step. Do you guys agree? Yeah. Often what happens is it is very important, I feel or I believe. So so these days what is happening is some of my friends, college friends whom I studied with in the past, a decade ago, so they come and call me and say, hey, you're an agile coach, I heard. So what should I do to be an agile coach? So but I asked them, do you want to be an agile coach? That is the first question. It's not about you just satisfying some criteria to be an agile coach. But if you're not passionate about it, I believe you cannot convince your team. It's very difficult for you to say and convince them saying, okay, this is what we're supposed to do. So it always comes from the self. So what I decided to do was few primary things. How many of you watched this movie Queen? Who has not watched the movie? I think most of you would have watched. I think it's one of the best movies in the past few years. I think it's all about that. Just be an explorer, be a child, and then connect with people. Start exploring the child within you, and then be open to ideas. So how can we do that? So one of the things I did was, so for me, chopsticks really helped. I have no idea how to use chopsticks before I went to China. But what I did, from day one, I started using, or like kind of twiddling around with chopsticks, whatever I could do. So that became the means for conversation. So every day I'll sit with a new person in the team, and ask them how to eat in chopsticks. So they'll teach me this, do this, and all that. And eventually, it helped me in two ways. One is, it helped me building connection with them. Because I'm interested in learning their culture. It was not even like I was faking it. I was genuinely interested in learning because I wanted to eat in chopsticks. It's as simple as that. So it became a very easy point for me to connect with them. That's one of the examples. But of course, it's very important for us to understand, appreciate the other culture, especially when you're working in a cross-cultural team. How many of you guys have done this? Like say understanding, like when you visit abroad, when you visit a different country, do you try and learn about the history, the culture, and stuff like that? Has it helped you?
One different way.
Yeah.
It was not during the other time, but before that.
Before that, yeah.
What we did is we cooked at office.
Okay, alright.
Cooked our lunch
Alright.
at office.
Okay.
And it is around work.
That's nice.
Today one person will cook, second. So there will be difference in taste and everything.
Okay.
As a team we make fun, we make everything.
Yeah.
And that bonded the team. Why we did this? Most of us are bachelor that. And
Alright.
there was no good eatery.
Okay.
Inexpensive eatery.
Okay.
Around.
Okay.
So we started cooking.
Alright.
It takes 30 minutes, but it worked amazing.
Yeah. It definitely works because you just start going beyond what we normally do, and I believe it works. And what's the other one? Like I said, be genuine, be honest, don't try to fake something that you don't. If you really don't like it, say it in a very polite and a nice way, but be honest and genuine about what you really feel about something. It is always okay to be truthful. And one simple thing is be nice and be extra nice, meaning it really touches people at multiple levels because, see for instance, when I used to work with these teams, it was more a learning that I had from them because sometimes when I used to wonder what I should do, there have been like circumstances where the team members have come out of way and have helped me to resolve some of the issues I had on a very personal level. I'm going to share some of my experiences because it's very important for us to understand and appreciate it. So what is important is every time you see someone has done something nice to you, what do we do? What do we do?
Return the favor.
Return the favor when?
Whenever the opportunity.
Whenever possible. So whenever possible will occur when?
Once in a blue moon.
Once in the blue moon. Yeah, right. So the simplest way to return a favor is to say thank you then and there, or to say how actually it meant to me. I was reading a letter from one of my friends. So he works for a company called Team. You guys know this company called Team. It's a piano company. It's a music company. So they have like people working across different borders, and you will see that every time he gets an appreciation mail from from a colleague who's outside India, it used to be so elaborated. There will be nicer words and it will be like very well said, very expressive. But usually, when it comes from India, it's often an award or it's like something like that. It's not that we don't want to talk about it, but we generally assume that they understand what we actually mean. So what I would request is take the step and just go say how nice it was that the other person has helped you. What's the second one? The third one is listen actively.
More shishya in China.
Sorry?
You told more shishya in China.
More?
Shishya. Thank you in China.
Shishya. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I learned that too. Then. The other one is listen actively and talk slowly. So by the way, some of the pictures I'm going to show are like the pictures I clicked when I was at different occasions, and it has a story. So I'm going to share some of the stories as well. So this is from a Chinese opera. Have you been for any operas? So generally, you have been there. Like generally operas, if you see, they're very slow. It's like super slow. It's like really slow, and that's how you have to talk to people as well. So this was a constant complaint that I was hearing from them, saying they really don't understand what their Indian counterparts were speaking, because we have a tendency to speak really fast, which I think I'm doing right now as well. It's very important for us to, because when I used to speak with the Chinese colleagues, I used to be like really slow. I used to tell them one word at a time, which really helped me. They understand that, they also appreciate it because you're making an effort to speak slowly.
The team that he coached, I went for training them in Scrum. Normally we do 2-day training, right? I stayed for 1 week. Literally 4 days of training. Right? Because I realized after first day that they just did not understand the first hour of what I was talking. And I realized that, let me sit down now, right? So it's that slow, right? If you speak in this fast, they just don't understand anything. I know what you have gone through.
That's right.
It's not
Yes.
just Chinese.
It's
Anyone
like
in the world,
anyone.
except India.
No, it's all the more for Chinese because
All the
they
more.
don't speak English, because
They
they don't
just-
understand
Exactly.
English very well. And the best part is they make an effort. So when you make an effort, the reciprocation is like a lot better. So what's the next last one? Last one is of course respect. So that's something we all understand. So in fact, the reason why I wanted to have this slide is we all speak about respect, but the question is, do we really, really respect each other? That is where the problem is, because when we talk to teams, even when we say agile, it's a very cliched thing. We'll say, hey, we all respect each other. It's like that. But do we really respect each other? Not really. It actually takes a lot of understanding and awareness to know where it comes from. Because half the time when another person is talking, we're constantly judging them, constantly trying to see how good or bad they are. Like, do they know this? Do they don't know this? I think probably he's not as good as what he's speaking. Like all these ideas gets into our head. It's okay, but what is more important is to respect them for what they are. And the best part about, or the beauty about this is the other person knows that you're judging. You can't even hide it. Has it happened to you? Yeah, many times, right? So, I mean, it's a very natural process, especially if you're a consultant and you know that it happens all the time and you're aware of it. And it's, I mean, especially if you're in this role, if you're wearing this hat, it's important for you to overcome that and then go through the journey and not really get worked up because somebody is judging. But even otherwise, try to bring it out. So that's it. Those are the things that I really wanted. It was like trying to emphasize on what all things I have to do. So now talking about what are the tools, what are the tools that we use specifically to address these issues. Because in my mind, all the people issues that we have today in our organizations is because of the unspoken things. It's clearly because of the unspoken things, or in other words, the ulteriors. Because we always assume things about people and we have it against them. It's almost like forever. We really don't go and resolve it. One fine day when there is an opportunity, whatever I have collected, I just throw it back. And that's when things gets nastier and the working teams becomes unpredictable, right? So what are the tools here? Okay, so I've intentionally avoided this because if you know, like 4, 14, 24 are like bad omen in China. They call it as 4 sounds like death. So they don't use anything in 4. The interesting part is if you just go to their floors, the lifts and all that, one floor you will not see anything. It will be like either an empty floor or they have like air conditioning vent or something, because 4 sounds like death. So what next? So what are the tools here? The first tool that I want to introduce is
So like in a building, on the 4th floor there will be nothing.
they will either empty or they have like say, basically it will not be very operational. But of course, not in every other building. There are a lot of other people who don't believe in such things. But it's a very common theory. If you've been Hong Kong, I think most of you would have been to Hong Kong. Like Hong Kong, if you see, even when they build towers, triangles are like not okay as per their Feng Shui. So what they did was, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but yeah, triangles are not okay. So because of that, they built another building which is square next to it, so that it balances out the energy in the city. So they believe in it. And it's important again to respect it. If you just laugh at it, you're gone. You can't coach them. So coming to contracts. So this is the first tool that I want to talk about. So this is something I have already introduced in the last session, but I want to emphasize on this. So what I mean by contracts is, every time we make something, we make a conversation, we really don't try to fix the slots, like meaning cover the end, give a secure zone. Meaning what I mean to say is, so today if I said, for example, if I was asking Maran, like say, how much time do I have for this session? I'm trying to contract with him, saying, what are you dealing with? What are we committing for? What are we agreeing for? So the first part is administrative contract, which we all do so beautifully. We all decide that, okay, this time, this date, you will do, they will do, this time, all the logistics, everything done, very good. Good. And what is the next one? Professional contract. That also we know, right? What I mean by professional contract is, let's say I'm talking, let's give an example from a Scrum context itself. Let's say if there is a Scrum Master who has to take up things, like say they have to arrange for meetings, facilitate stuff. It is almost always understood that the Scrum Master has to do it because we say it's his role requirement. And similarly, a manager has to do XYZ, and a tester has to do XYZ, and a developer has to do XYZ. That's all we talk about. And the third part is where we miss. What is psychological contract? Any guess? Any idea? Sorry, what? Yes? No, I thought we were supposed to say something. Okay, anyone else?
It could be an interpersonal.
Interpersonal, in what way? What are we contracting here?
Thoughts?
Sorry?
Thoughts?
Thoughts? Okay, like how? Any example?
Like what's your expectations from me?
Alright, yeah, that's pretty close. But what I'm talking about is almost correct. It's like, do we really ask the person, are you willing to do this? You know, let's say if a Scrum Master is there to facilitate a discussion, the first question has to be, are you really willing to do this for me? Because the moment they decide to make it a failure, any plan, I'm sure any team can make it as a failure. The most beautiful business plan, if they decide to make it a failure, they will successfully make sure it's failed, right? Right? Without any doubt. You know, you just tell them that, hey, I want to have developers and testers. I'm going to take JP's example because it's something we see in McAfee very often. Like when we say developers and testers, we say, guys, we're going to have SDET role, you guys going to do this, do that and all that. They all will say, okay, okay in front of everyone. That is again face value or the hierarchy that we have in an organization. But when it comes to real work, they will do what they want to do, no matter what. So it's very important to at least bring that out in open, by which what I mean is the ulterior. Do they really want to do it? If they want to do it, respect them and give them options. So it doesn't mean that you're going to let go of everyone like that. You always know when to stop, right? You always know when to make surgical moves, when to make a very clear, critical movement. But otherwise, give an opportunity for people to speak. Two ways it's going to help you. One is it helps you understand what is the expectation of the other person. And the second thing is, even though they want to do it, it gives them an opportunity to speak. All we want is like, we want to be heard. If you talk to most of the teams when you have problems, when they say nothing is happening, all they want to know is that they want something to hear you. Has it happened to you in your teams? While you have coached? In your personal life? All the time, right? Yeah. So I didn't tell you. So I used to train. I used to be training in a psychotherapy group. So wherein we used to gather every week, and we do a lot of therapy sessions. You know, we will run a lot of group sessions. So of course, most of the therapy sessions, all you will see is couples. You know, you will see couples everywhere, and they'll just come and they'll have different problems. So if you just see, one of the important problems that most men and women in general they face is most women have a complaint against men that they don't listen to me. You know, in fact, they're not even looking for problem solving. Nobody is looking for problem solving. All they want is, and we being the alpha male that we are, we always want to give solutions, but it's okay. But what happens is, in their case, all they are looking for is, they just want to be heard. Just speak to me, or just listen to you. That's pretty much it. It helps immensely. Try it with your teams, because I've tried with most cases, especially when I start coaching the team, we can always see people who resist the change. Call them to a meeting room and talk to them and understand what their expectations are. Yeah? To try it out. So that's one of the tools. So of course, for details about administrative professional contract, I'm not getting into it, but these materials are available online, open source. You can just go find anywhere. So we guys are good to go. I'll go to the next slide. Yes, you have a question?
I always feel that people are more hesitant to say no.
Yeah.
They just want to be nice in front of everybody, and they say yes to whatever you say.
Yes.
And then finally, people are really scared to say no in front of anything. And they want to say it, but they can't say it. Maybe it depends on the situation sometimes, and maybe it depends on the person whom you are communicating with.
That's right.
So that if that barrier breaks, then we can communicate actually very
Yeah,
well.
sure.
And that solves the problem.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm not a coach, but when I talk to a coach, I always feel that, okay, what will that person think if I say no to something? Like if I talk to my Scrum Master, saying he's asking, like, are you interested? If I say no, then how if it is affecting the project, or how will be I treated?
Okay.
That is the thing which goes to mind when you are telling no to Scrum Master. Because the other point comes out is, what is the role of the Scrum Master in the organization structure? That is when the no, whether it is no or no.
No, but I think it's very healthy to confront it. If you don't know the role, you might as well ask, saying, hey, I don't know the role, tell me what is the role. But yeah, coming back to I heard you, but I'm not getting the question. You have a specific question, or it's like...
I just want to say that people can say no. It's okay to say no.
It's absolutely okay to say no. It's like absolutely fine. In fact, just to complete that, this is something I don't have in this slide, but I do this no exercises with my team. Meaning, I ask them to say no to me. Tell no to me. Just practice with me, start with me, and eventually start practicing with other people. There are always happy people who will come and fight with me all the time. I'm very happy to do that because it gives them a vent out. But I totally agree. It's absolutely true. Saying no is
Say
fine.
yes and you do whatever you want to do, that messes up the whole
This messes up the whole thing. The psychological term for that is called passive aggressiveness, meaning you are passively aggressive. You really don't bring it out in open.
That same happens in every company, even in my company.
Sure.
The person above us never accepts no as an answer. So we give a yes, we come and do what we want.
You had a question. Yes.
Just to add to it, actually that's a mob culture and the mentality that is persistent across our culture in a sense. So basically what happens is, even in my teams also it usually happens. So in the meetings, team meetings, generally nobody talks in the first place. Forget about saying no, they don't even ask a question. So to address this, actually what we do is we regularly have a one-on-one session and we give the feedback on what exactly is missing and what is that we are looking for. So that one-on-one session is, I'm not sure if that is happening in every organization, but at least we make it as a practice saying that okay, we need to take certain steps so that like we address some of the key areas.
Wonderful. That's nice. Good to know.
I had a chance of, luckily or unluckily, I got to work with a 70 plus years of old guy, Swedish guy.
Okay.
Who's always be ready to say no. He's so straightforward guy.
Yeah.
But several instances, like we have to take some decisions on certain activities. But he straight away says, when a team of 15 is ready to say yes, the only guy says no. It was the practice what we used to make him to groom him. We started saying okay, let's start instead of going up with our plan. Start building up from his plan and groom him up to come to accept our plan. That was one of the tactics which we used and it worked out well.
Yeah. So one more thing, this reminds me of something. Have you watched this movie 12 Angry Men? Yeah, so that is a movie I would actually recommend you guys should play it in your office space. Like the same situation, how it starts with one person saying no and how eventually the conversation leads to something. But I want to add something to what you said, which is a good idea, one-on-ones work. But as another tip, or rather what I also do is, so what happens with this part is, there is this thing about when a manager or somebody higher than you comes and tells me, hey, this is the feedback I have, you're not saying this. So you're already creating a gap between what you are versus what you want to do, right? So this is a very difficult gap to fill naturally, meaning it will take a long time to evolve unless and until the person is convinced that he wants to change. So be watchful of that. What is very important is understand why the person is saying no, or where is the fear coming from, because that is the core issue. Once you sort it out, obviously things will fall in place.
So even the one-on-ones what you're saying, right? It works only when you have a connection with the person. A lot of one-on-one happens. Every month the manager or a senior manager, somebody does one-on-one. I go sit there, I don't give feedback and come just because I just not connected with the person. Right? And most important thing what you're saying, that connection. If you don't make the connection with that person, right? Because when you're saying we are by birth we are trained like that to respect elders. Irrespective whether they're correct or not. We are trained like that. So that's exactly what is follow. We just follow.
We did one thing to open up to people during the meetings. For retrospective, no one speaks.
Okay.
Because of Fairbanks. So what we did is, it's a mandatory. Everyone should give 1 point. Everyone. And that point should not be repeated by another.
Okay.
Now, I have 7. Most of the times it is 10 people. So I need 10 unique points. So people will definitely start speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. When we do this, first 2 times it will be very hard. After that, people will start by themselves.
Sure.
Okay. Another one way what we do is silent recruitment, where we don't allow anyone to talk. Write it anonymously.
Okay.
And post it. After that, we come with, okay, group it up, discuss.
Sure.
Now this becomes an anonymous collective answer,
As well as you did.
as well as they have spoken.
Good, thanks for sharing. So anyway, in the interest of time, so I'm going to quickly run through the next slides.
I just have one point. So, this is a very interesting phase because a lot of companies are right now in the process of adopting Agile.
Yeah.
And what it means is it's a good practice, but at the same time, people have to break away from the regular practice to go there.
That's right.
And according to that, what it means is that the way the people have the regular hierarchy, being a manager, if you have X number of people reporting, you drive the work, then that individual becomes senior. in certain situation, if the person has to say no, that means he's going to get a lot from the management saying that this is a change management, you guys have to adopt it. So this is kind of an interesting phase where a lot of companies go through this kind of a transformation where you cannot agree, at the same time it has to be quite tactical that how to put across and accept it what is necessary.
That's right.
You can't say no for certain things, you can't say yes for everything.
Well, that's another interesting dynamic because we're talking about adapting to a particular culture. I feel it's kind of, we understand it very differently. When we say adapting to something, it means something that is logical and sensible, not something that comes from the power or from the hierarchy. I think that's what people generally mean by being flexible. Being flexible meaning something that will add value to the product and not just something that comes as rule. But anyway, that's a different thing. So let me move on to the next slide. So the next technique that I want to talk about is, it's a neuro-linguistic program-based technique. So this is in relation with what we all spoke about now. It's about saying no. So like I said, so like you mentioned, we have one-on-ones, right? But there's also another effective technique, which we call it as a two-chair technique, which we try to use whenever we have to resolve a conflict. By which what I mean is, let's say if I have a conflict with, I'll take Maran.
That's okay.
I have a conflict with Maran, for instance. Okay, he's not giving me more time to talk. So that is a conflict I have.
Should we give Karthik more time?
You're resolving the conflict. No, I want the conflict to end. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is, so like say Maran and I have a problem with respect to something, and I'm not going to tell Maran saying, hey, this is the problem, can we sort it out? Instead, I'm just going to hold it against him, and one day I'm just going to give it back to him. But the best way to resolve this, one of the ways I've used is two-chair. Meaning I'll just put the person in one chair and ask them, heard them out first. Tell me what is your problem. Okay, tell me. I'll just listen. Okay, listen properly, listen actively, genuinely again. Now put the other person on the next chair and ask him or her, why do you think the other person is behaving in a particular way? Ask them to reason out. And everyone knows there are logical reasons why everybody is behaving in a particular way, and deep down we all know that. But we don't bring it into our surface because we're so clogged down with our own emotions. But the moment they start speaking about the reasons, they understand it better. I'm not saying the conflict will be resolved, but eventually things will get better. Have you guys tried it in your teams? So there's nothing like logic, right? Because logic is something which always is common for everyone because it's facts and figures. So often everybody knows. See, for example, when I say, the same example I'm talking about, when I say Maran is not giving me time, I know that there is a session to move on. There are like other speakers waiting.
Should we
so,
do it? Chairs there?
He's ready for that.
Are you ready? You guys want to do, because I'm already running short of time. Is it okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Alright, fine. Yes, you have a question?
The question is, when you put the other person in the other chair and ask him what is the reason, one of the questions, answers which we get is, I don't know.
Use the 5 words.
Most of the time, that's a very good point. So what we do is that we keep on asking. For example, talking to yourself, right? So he's telling you, no, you don't have time. This is why. So the next thing coming up is, how much time?
Yeah.
You ask him more and more questions. More questions. Maybe 5 W's, 1 H or whatever it is. Just keep on asking him questions. Why do you think it is? Can we move it along? Do you suggest that we can move that one, or we can sort it out the break times, kind of thing?
Sure.
So you keep on probing him, let him only explore. It's called explorative way of probing him. Keep on probing him, and at the end of the day, he will understand what it is that you do.
That's right.
So that's a good icebreaker.
That's right. And also this I don't know is a comfort space, by the way. I don't know is always a comfort space. To say that I don't know something, or it's like, what is one big comfort space you will face in all the team? Another biggest comfort zone is, I just did what is being told by my manager, or I just did what is being told by the process. I did a code review, I did what I have to do. That is also a comfort zone. And you will see there are a lot of comfort zones like this, but especially in this session, I don't know generally happens when it's, as far as I know, when there are very deep issues. When things are like really, you're like so clogged down with your emotions, you just want to go kill the other person. That's when, I don't know, it's a very bad signal, by the way. So you want to do it now?
Sure, yeah.
So you have a conflict with me now, right? You're nervous? Okay, I'm not doing anything, you can just say. So what is the conflict with me now?
Yeah, we planned this event, but I think we need to I'm not very open,
Okay.
but I have it inside me.
Inside you what? Like what are you
He's looking at me now.
But shouldn't you sit here and, how do we do this?
No,
Like,
I'm going to like this.
Sure,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll tell you. So yeah. So tell me, what are you not open about?
Okay, I'm not open about, there's a lot of discussion that people are discussing, but I don't want to break in and cut it, to take it, especially in the open house. So I'm confused. Should I tell you to stop right now, or should I let you continue the discussion? So that's my, I'm not very open about it, because I'm standing there.
As I understand, the conflict you have with is not just with me, but as a group, you feel that things are not going on time and it's like overboard, right?
Right.
That's your conflict, right? Okay. So now, come to this chair.
Alright.
Now tell me, why do you think it's going overboard? What is the reason?
Who should I?
No. Think from, let's say you are in this group.
Should I be looking at someone?
No, just look at anywhere you want.
Okay.
Look at me. So tell me, why do you think it's going beyond the regular time? Like,
Yeah, because I think the first session, people really got involved. They were paying so much attention, and questions were also a bit, I won't say draggy, but there were too much discussion beyond the stipulated time.
Okay.
So I think that was one reason. But we can't help it, because if it benefits the participants, then we would have to do it.
Okay, so you believe that it's worth it.
Yeah, I believe it's worth it.
Okay, so now that we know that, so you're very clear, so you know that there is a reason why they are doing it. So tell me, what are the other options you have to control this equation? So one thing, I know you already tried something, so what did you try? How did you try to control the discussion?
How did I try? Yeah, with the parking lot, that's one idea that we always do, so that's
a
one
thing.
reason.
Yes, okay.
And the other one, someone suggested that we could shorten the lunch break, so that was another idea. So
Okay.
we'd have to try it out today. So that's one other idea I have.
Okay, alright.
That's pretty much it.
Anything else? Anything else that you could think of?
No, not right.
So the lunch sounds like a good idea to me, because,
Okay.
but do you think, can you do something else? Can you get the agreement from the team? Will the team be okay with it?
Yeah, are you guys, can I ask, are you guys okay with it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so it's good, so.
Alright, so we are okay, so we're going to continue with the session and we're going to have a short So, alright, so this was a very quick session. Of course, Maran and I, or Maran and the group really don't have any deep issues, so it was very easy. But I would like to bring out some significant observations from this particular chair. What all things did you observe? Meaning? He was not confident enough to tell the truth. The truth meaning? That was a very innocent question. What is it doing here?
He's not able to control his
Sorry? It's more of an introspection. Actually, this session is very introspective. In fact, the reason why we physically move the person from one chair to another, because it's very kinesthetic. Some of these human changes that we talk about doesn't happen in your mind, doesn't happen with talking as well. You have to practically push them or move them for them to have, for it to happen, and this works in a way. Generally, these sessions are very intense, but what she said is a very interesting point. When she said he's not speaking the truth, right? So can I take your example? I hope you don't mind. Because it's a very common thing that we have in our team, because we often have this thing in our head, which means there is an element of trust which is kind of not there in you. Often when you talk about teams, this happens with your estimations. Every time when I talk to developers and testers, right, most of the testers tells me that I think what he or she is estimating is not right. So where does it come from? You know, how do you even judge a person saying this is not happening? So there has to be a reason, right? There has to be a reason why it comes from. Like in her case, maybe I'm guessing, she's guessing that he's trying to be very nice to her because it's a group and he has to continue doing this forum meets again and again. So he can't be rude to us. And she might think that it comes from there. Or in a practical scenario, in a Scrum scenario, they might have instances where a particular person kind of took away a lot of time to finish an activity unnecessarily. Right? So what do we do there? We have to talk about that particular issue specifically to sort it out. Or else this is going to be something that will constantly come up in your team. There will be no trust to begin with. So again, coming back to this particular exercise itself, If you notice what I'm trying to do in the first part, of course, I try to listen. Of course, I do it more in a more calm and a composed way. So I try to listen to Maran, hear him out, like what he wants to say. And the moment he goes to the other chair, he already knows the reasons. And he already did something. So actually, I gave him appreciation for that. Meaning, I appreciate what you have done already, because that is very important for us. Because we have to appreciate whatever we are doing. If you don't appreciate, you don't get it. So appreciate him for what he has done. And what I did was, I continued with the discussion about, because he has a lot of free child, meaning he's very innovative and imaginative, all of us are. You have to just have options. So I started asking him, what are the options? What are the solutions that you have? So he already had one in his mind. So I quickly asked him, like, I also proceeded with the discussion because there's another third party involved, right? Because there's a group. He might decide that I'm going to short the lunch, but what if you guys don't like it? So it's very important for him to understand that. In a way, what we did was contracting. Psychological contracting. Sorry?
Contracting and having consensus for the group.
Yes. Which is actually, that's what I meant by contracting. He has already decided the time, like how much time we're going to have. And psychologically, he's asking you, are you guys okay with it? Now that you guys can say yes and a no, what is the interesting part here is, if you say an yes, I think most of you would say yes because all of us want to be nice. But the best part is, it's very interesting, guys, because I have this all the time in my teams. Even though I gave them an option, by and large they tell me yes. Okay? But there is a difference there. So because you're saying an yes, right, it's a choice that you have made. And the ownership that you have for the activity is a lot more than what it is otherwise. If I had not asked the question and I had asked you to do something, you would still hold it against me. But since I already asked you, well, it's your problem. You told me yes, so you guys deal with it. It's like that. It really, really works. So try two-chair in your technique, but the only try two-chair in your teams, but the only word of caution I have is be very, very careful. Because it might rub you on the wrong side, because the team members might get offended by some of your questions. So unless and until you're not very comfortable with the team member, or you see if it's a very critical case, make sure, because what is the most difficult thing that can happen in the organization is somebody resigning. Right? That is the fear most of us have. Most managers have an issue with dealing with problem because they feel, okay, what if he leaves the team, I don't have another person to work. So be a little careful, but otherwise it's largely okay. Yes.
Can I get a chance to add on my point?
Sure, please.
Yes. Hi everyone. I have had this about this logical and psychological factor behind this two-chair technique is from one of the psychologists. As you ask a person to sit in a chair and ask about what was the conflict, the person is actually could be in various situations. It could be emotional, anger, happiness, excited, any of the expressions. So at that point of time, it all comes from the mind, whatever he's speaking of. But when we ask a person to shift it to the other chair and start speaking of why it happened, the psychological factor that what impacts on him is like why the person has asked me to change the chair. The question starts in his mind, and where he calms down and starts thinking about that, and then he starts thinking about each and every word what he speaks. Okay, why it happened. The emotions and as well as the nervousness in the person will be decreased. He'll start thinking logically, okay, this was happened, and this is the reason, and he starts calm down and comes out with the solutions. That was one of the factors that I heard from the psychologist.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. That's again kinesthetic, like I said. Anyway, very nice. Thanks for sharing. And thanks, Marvin, for doing the exercise with me. So I'll just quickly move on to the last few things. And use cultural-specific metaphors. I think that is something we all know. One of the metaphors that I use with these things, two metaphors rather, which I remember now is one is chopsticks. I always remember chopsticks for pairing. Because we always talk about pairing with one person, since you cannot eat with one stick. And you definitely need two sticks to have something. So pairing is like that. You cannot say that one person will pair, one person will code and I just sit and watch. You have to do it together. And another cultural metaphor is if you just look at their addresses will start from the area. It will start from the district, and then it will say the road, and then it will say the flat number, the apartment number, and then the house number. That's how it goes, which in a way is like your story slicing. How you have a bigger, larger chunk and then slowly how you slice it down into smaller units. It's very important for us to use them. Why? Because it helps you connect with them. And the last one, Modeling behaviors. So this again, this is something I have experimented recently. I have not done it in the past, but it works for me. So if you just look at this particular picture, there is a story. The kid that you see there, this happened at the Forbidden City at Beijing. So the kid over there refused to wear those attire, because it's a traditional dress, and obviously he doesn't like it. And the father over there, he decided to wear the costume for him. The moment he wore it, the kid also wore it. That's one of the techniques which always works with your teams. If you want to implicitly or explicitly state a particular habit, start role modeling it for them. Be it playing a Scrum Master or a tester or a developer, show it, people will see it. That is one of the techniques that you can help. And the last one is set goals, ask feedback every single time. So this is something we all know, but why I wanted to talk about this specifically is because we all set goals very well. We have like beautiful goals set, we have like all plans set, but what we don't do is we really don't follow up on the goals and really ask feedback every now and then. Even though Agile says that timely feedback is important, what I have observed is most often, even in India, we miss on the feedback part. We set the goals so beautifully, we have like larger than life goals, sometimes very nice goals, but we really don't ask feedback very often. One thing that we have to make peace here on the people part is, it's okay to change your goal if it is not really working, as opposed to sticking on to a goal because I have made a plan, right? What's the last one? This is another interesting thing, incremental group discussions. So what happened was, when I used to have one-on-ones with this team, they used to talk so well to me, they used to tell me every problem they had. And one fine day, I decided to bring everyone together and let's talk about the problems. There was not even a single person who spoke about their problems. I just realized that, with Indian teams I have not faced this largely because there will be always one or two who will speak up. But especially here it didn't happen. So I realized that somewhere I have to work on their dynamics. So what I started doing was, started noticing relationships, how they operate as a team. So I started incrementing the group discussion. First I started with 2 people who are very comfortable with. Then I added the third dynamic and noticed what was happening. 4th people, 5th people. It really helps people, like that's one of the things that might work for your retrospectives as well, if you really think your teams are not opening up. Finally, this is your reward for staying with me for like an hour, and which for Maran also. This is for prosperity, which is a Napa cabbage. It means, if you look at Napa cabbage, it says that, or it's believed that it brings in prosperity to you. So that's pretty much. So I'm not even talking about what we actually did on the systemic, on the process level, because those are some of the things which most of you would have heard at many instances. So that's it, guys. So thank you very much. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Karthik. Do you guys have questions for him? No? Okay, so I think my role play helped, right?
Yeah.
Should we take it?
One minute. So what I want to ask you is, you are saying from the manager perspective, as an employee, most of the time I end up with what my manager is saying, even though I am not interested. So how do you put across? How do you say that? Because I am able to understand
That's something which we practice. So when there is a discussion, right, one-on-one discussion.
Yeah, even we say you just
No, we
speak.
never schedule a calendar, we never get into a meeting.
Yeah. Offline.
Okay? No, never. So it's a mandate that when you're putting it a one-on-one, either with your boss or with your subordinate, it must not be on your calendar. It should not be inside a meeting room at all. And in all the meeting rooms, there is a poster that this is not meant for your one-on-one. Okay? So either you go for a walk, you go to the cafeteria, go out on a beer or somewhere, but you discuss something which is in a very informal way. Because what we have found is that most of the time the employee or the boss generally opens up when they are in an informal way. In a formal way, as you said, it's very correct. Nobody opens up. Right? So to break the ice, just go out to the cafeteria, bring a coffee or do something for an employee, they'll be pretty happy. Most of the time which I do is I buy them chocolates.
Having a one-on-one, having a very good one-on-one is very easy for smokers.
Okay, absolutely.
I didn't say that.
Or a coffee. Okay? Anyone.
So I want to add something to it. So what you said, it's very important to understand why you can't say that. Often, let's be very honest about it, the primary fear is appraisals.
Yes.
What will happen
Forget
if my...
about appraisal. The hierarchy may, when manager is telling, you cannot say no for some things. Like you may get here. Forget about the appraisal, the pressure, how he gives to you after the discussion.
So, so
he should
there
be
are,
open to listen from the employee. And from employee perspective, he has to tell whatever the problem he is facing.
yeah,
Yes,
I
most
agree.
of the time
No, I
understanding-
totally agree, but there is a slight problem here. You know, we are putting the ball on the other person's court and asking them to change, you know. That's a little difficult, it's a little tricky. You might do it forever and ever, it might never work. But one thing, like both the circumstances, I want to quickly and finish it here, but both are different cases, like as I understand, I haven't heard you properly, but still, what I believe is, let's say one is appraisal, another one is a fundamental fear of how to handle the situation, because some of them are very powerful. You know, some of them are very powerful as managers and as human beings, you know, they can empower, you know, they can actually almost overshadow you throughout, right? It happens. So one thing that you can do is, I always tell this team, it's a trick, but now it's not a trick if you guys know it. Always use the word feel as opposed to think. You know, whatever you have to say, it's very easy to say, I feel this way, nobody would question your feeling. The moment you put think, I think this is what you're doing, this is what is happening, facts and figures are always questionable. And you don't have the comfort space. You know, let's say if your manager is really too hard to deal with, I'm sure just go try to him, just tell him that I feel that this is not okay. That's the only way you can. But again, let's assume that you guys start speaking, but that's a very small technique which would work with most people.
Just before lunch, okay.
If
In
you
the cafeteria.
If you say feel, I think he may say like it's your feeling, I may not care.
Yeah. So the next question is, I mean, if I were you, okay, if you really don't care, I don't care either. I'm leaving the company.
That's why the action happens.
Yeah, but you know, it's important. You know, I'm not recommending anyone to leave the company here. But all I'm saying is, be vocal, and it's your freedom, and you cannot expect another person to understand. It's very important to say it. I have faced it, meaning I have never faced, to be very honest, I've never been in a situation where I felt I had office politics, because there has been no politics. I've always told out and open, like screamed and created all records, whatever I want. It works, it has really worked for me, so it's like my own thing, but you guys figure out. Alright, yeah.
Alright, so time for me now. Hey, write them down in sticky notes. Sorry about it, alright?
Sure.
So Karthik, thank you very much for coming. Round of applause for Karthik. We're going to do a lucky draw in the evening, and the way we're going to do that is distribute these questions for people that come here often, they know it. For the new joinees, fill these questions and drop them in the lucky draw box that will be visible to you on the foosball table. And then break for 15 minutes. We will meet back at 12:45. Sounds good? Okay, there's a coffee machine here, restrooms are on my right, and there's also tea arranged for you outside the room. So come back at 12:45, we'll do a session and then go back for lunch. First, take the quiz, fill it out, drop it in the